Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is my regular Everything in Bloom on the 8th. I do this video every month, and if I'd remembered yesterday that I was doing this today, I might not have filmed so many blooms yesterday. So there may be a few repeats in here today, but I do this in a different style. I do have a chat about each plant as I go round. So I think we started on the right last time, so we'll start on the left this time. And first off is my only Vanda in bloom at the moment. I do believe this was an Ascocentrum. It's got no formal ID. Bought for me by my daughter actually as a present. Blooms regular. Plant suffered badly last year in the heat wave and dropped quite a few of its older leaves, leaving this not very elegant bare bit on the stem. Some of these leaves don't look so good either near the base, but nonetheless the plant does have a kiki growing, and the idea is eventually to grow that on and cover up the nasty base. But it blooms regularly, often 2 spikes at a time, puts on a nice show. That's a winter spike, but the good thing about that is it's lasting an awful long time. That's been in bloom for ages. Plant not looking as good as it used to, but nonetheless survives and carries on blooming, so not too bad. Coming down here, the tiny twinkle, this is the last spike now. The twinkles seem to all bloom at once this time round. They're all finishing now, most have already finished, so we've now got the 9 or 10 month wait until the next round of blooms. Don't have an annual cycle, the twinkles. They tend to mature their blooms faster than annually, to one degree or another. So they can come into bloom, in theory, this one could be back in bloom sort of Christmas time. Anyway, coming to the end of its time now. It's been in bloom a good amount of time. Had a nice staggered set of spikes, so it lasted quite a while. But on its way out now, nearly finished. And then this one down here is the Tahitian dancer, we think. I'm pretty positive. But this one was bought as a spur of the moment, I'm fed up purchase. I can't believe anybody else ever does that, where you just go out to get something from a shop, spy an orchid, and it just jumps in your basket. The orchid fairies just plant it there, and when you get to the checkout, you're too embarrassed to put it back, so you buy it. That plant, it's a good mature plant. It's been split. The division's off to somebody else in the drawer. And it was a good plant. That was £8 in full bloom. Good plant, didn't have bad roots. I wouldn't say brilliant, but not bad. And that included a decorative pot, which promptly got thrown out because I don't use them. But nice blooms, very attractive. Virtually no fragrance, just a slight floral fragrance if you get your nose right in there. But yeah, these were the 2 spikes that were just forming their buds when I bought the plant. So I think it had about another 6 spikes in full bloom when I got it, and those have gone over now. The last one hasn't been trimmed off here yet, but will be. And these are the last blooms on this for a while, but we do have a nice little set of new growths on this one coming. There's another one trying to push out in there as well. So 4 I can see anyway, so that should push on nicely. And next to that is my only Sarcochilus. That may change now that I've seen the blooms. I'm quite impressed. They may be small, but they are attractive. I don't know much about these plants, I must admit, but if I get some more, I'll find out, basically. But this was a gift, so, it's something I just got, didn't take much notice of, and then it suddenly decided to throw a spike out, and I'm quite pleased. That's quite attractive. That is Sarcochilus hartmannii. I'm told. Again, it didn't have a label when I got it. But it came from Burnham's, again, as a gift. But looking on their website, they didn't have many Sarcochilus types. And looking at the size of the plants for sale and when I got it, I'm pretty certain that's what this one is. Attractive little blooms. I'm quite pleased with that. And surprised. I wasn't quite expecting that. We do have some, oh come on, Restrepias in bloom, but that means stripping the whole shelf out to get the plants out. And I can't film the blooms on Restrepias really well with a handheld camera, and I've got too much to do today to start faffing with the tripod, so we'll give them a miss this time. The white Dendrobium phalaenopsis type, quite honestly, this bloomed last winter. It had 2 buds on the spike, yet again, very poor spike, and one of them blasted, so I only ended up with 1 bloom, and I don't remember them looking this good, or that looking this good, because there was only 1 in the end. And, you know, a second closer look at that, and that is an attractive bloom. Simple, simplistic, deep purple inside the lip there, and gentle creamy green tinges. A lot of the Phalaenopsis and Nobile types tend to have tinges rather than bold patterning, but some of these really do, you know, have shouting loud colours on them. But I like this one, and I might try that one mounted. It's the smallest of my 3 Phalaenopsis types, and others have said they do well mounted, so I'll always give something a try. These don't grow that well for me, or they haven't in the past, and this one desperately needs repotting. It's on the list, the big list. And before we whiz past this one, this is Dendrobium primulinum, and this is an unusual blooming because this is quite an old cane. Hasn't bloomed before, but nonetheless I don't think that's a recent growth. This was last year's growth here, and you can see the buds forming nicely on that one, but they're going to come out quite a bit later than these 2, and these 2 will probably fade soon. These are not long-lasting blooms, but delicate, so delicate, the veining in the lip, which fades as they age. You know, this doesn't look anywhere near as good as it did for the first few days when it opened, but lovely delicate blooms, and plenty more to come. That's that one. And then down here we've got the whatever it is. This is Polysema crossed with Aberrans, and it's coming to the end of its mass blooming now. It's been in bloom for absolutely ages, but most of the spikes have finished, but this one has just started, so these 2 blooms have only just opened. Still got a bud to come on here. Like many of the Latoria types, often the really good patterning is actually on the back of the flowers rather than on the front. Patterning on the back of this one is intense, lovely deep magenta purple spotting. And then round the front you get the, that's wobbling all over the place, I can tell. You get the delicate veining, and the spots on the back sort of show through. The colour isn't really on the inside of the bloom, it's on the back, but it shows through. But that veining on the lip is gorgeous. This one suffered badly in the heat wave last year. In fact, these 3 canes with no leaves on were last year's new growths, and they basically aborted. And it wasn't really the heat. I mean, these come from areas where they would get heat. It was my inability in that intense heat over that long period of time to keep the humidity up to go with it. So it wasn't really the heat that did the damage, it was the heat and the lack of humidity at that time. So, and all of my Latorias are due a repot, and I got a feeling 1 or 2 of those might get mounted as well. I have plenty of hanging space, so I keep saying that, but one day it's going to get full. Right, moving on. The Brassivola Little Stars, I'll get that down, otherwise it'll be silhouetted. Still in bloom. The original first few blooms that opened, that's still silhouetted, are at the top. They're just starting to fade, although they've been with us a long time. And the other 2 spikes have opened relatively recently. I've been chatting with Martin about this, and he's not as impressed with this blooming. And I tend to agree. I must admit I was expecting the blooms to be larger. But nonetheless, on this plant, you know, this is its first blooming for me. It hasn't acclimatized properly to my environment yet. Didn't have a brilliant root system. It is now starting to grow some new roots, and it has one single new growth round the back there, which is also producing some new roots. So I think the next time this blooms, perhaps it'll be a bit more impressive. But lovely night fragrance on this one, providing you remember to come out at night. Otherwise, you don't get to know. But yes, I must admit, I preferred the blooms on my Nodosa, but I lost that plant. So, you know, this is its substitute. So that's that one. Let's get that back up in the gods where it lives. Bright light job, that one. It lives up near the roof. Now, I'm not digging these plants out, and I might end up having to use the zoom, but my epidendrum has 6 spikes on it currently, and 2 of them are opening. This one's been open a while now, probably about a month. But these are like perpetual bloomers, the radicantypes, reed stem type epidendrums. They open like a pom-pom on top of the spike, but they just keep pushing buds up through the centre, out through the top. And they just keep going for ages and ages, and that is a gorgeous splash of orange with tinges of yellow near the top. Lovely blooms. And, you know, last an awful long time because they're virtually perpetual. Eventually the spikes do lose their energy and the last few buds open, and then the blooms drop off. But that's a long time before that happens. This should be in bloom well into the summer. Well worth it. And while I've got the zoom on, my well, this has changed names actually. I've got it down as BC, Abrassocatlia Mackay, but it's not called that anymore. But it's staying with that name in here until I can bother to memorise the new name. But the Mackay bit doesn't change. But boy, do these colours change. This was a deep, rich colour when it first opened, and the petals and sepals have faded to virtually white. And the coloration on the lip does change as well. That gets paler, but still looks good, even after the rest of the blooms start to fade. Again, that's been in bloom for ages and ages. The plant's coming on quite well now. It's pushed out quite a few new growths and is helping to get a better root system on itself. And I think come the warmer weather and the brighter light, that plant's going to take off. I think I'm expecting a lot of new growth this year. So come the winter time next year, perhaps we'll get more of a mass blooming. But I was well pleased, you know. I mean, that's I wasn't expecting this to bloom, quite honestly. So pleased with that one. And then tucked in amongst the greenery, almost hiding, is the Dendrobium alexandrae. And again, the Latoria type blooms do have some strange flowers in amongst them. Almost alien-like. But I mean, come on, that is absolutely gorgeous. And again, it's been in bloom for ages. These blooms are showing no signs of going over yet. Plant needs a repot, but I get annoyed because every time I look at the Latorias, I look at the algae in the pots and all the moss growing across the top, and I think, boy, do you need a repot. I can't do them all at once, but coming soon with that one. Repot, I mean. Right, where are we now? That's that shelf done. There's nothing else on high. Got Tolumnius spikes coming out my ear holes, but not open yet. A couple of the high up Cattleyas, the No ID hybrid bloom, singular. The other bud on that spike blasted. I don't ask why, I haven't got a clue. It just happens sometimes. But it seems to be lasting reasonably well. It's an attractive bloom. It's quite fragrant, not bad at all. And the orange one up here, again, it's lasting well. And I think it may have lasted well enough that that can go to the show tomorrow. The plant will need a bit of prep if I'm going to take it. But nonetheless, that's a gorgeous splash of orange. And what I like about this one is just that fact. It's the fact that it's a simple orange and doesn't have lots of other colours. And that is, you see what I mean about my pen? That was supposed to be a fine point Sharpie, and it's fading so fast. It's obviously a cheap imitation. It's not the real thing, because I've got labels that have been out here, tags that have been out here like 2-3 years, and they're still jet black. So obviously this pen that I got was a cheap copy. See if I can get a proper one. I think to get a proper one, nowadays with all the imitations and copies around, you'd probably have to go to a proper stationer's or art suppliers or somebody like that. But I'll find a good one again. I'll have to go round and do half my labels. Yeah, but yeah, not a good pen this time round, and it's luckily I know my plants well enough to, you know, not really get the, if the tag goes missing, it doesn't matter. I still know what the plant is, luckily. Ow! So I've just got a plant attached to the camera up above me. Right, the Tolumnias that are actually open, we've got this. These are two of the ones that I got at Christmas time at the Christmas do that were already in spike at the time, and they've opened up nicely. They may have proper names, but the style of the name implies to me that it's just a trade name and it's probably unregistered, and I haven't bothered looking them up. But this one was tagged as Mo01 and this one was Mo04. Now it might be there's a Tolumnia hybridizer around that's got a family member called Mo and is naming the plants after them, and they are registered, but so far I haven't checked. But this is a gorgeous deep rich red. I really do like this one, and again it's because of its simplicity. It's just basically red with tiny little tinges of greeny yellow, and on the picture that tinge should have been round the base of the bottom of the blooms as well, and it isn't. And quite honestly, either way I still like it. If that's how it's going to stay and not develop that edging, I don't mind. I actually like that as is. It would also look nice if it did have that edging. And then this one up here is typical of a Tolumnia that has pink involved with it. You tend to get an incredibly deep red in the centre, and then the tinges of pink or purple tend to be around the extremities, and they vary from bloom to bloom. Let's see if I can turn this. If you look at the one on the right, the tinges around the edge at the bottom are quite heavy, and yet over here they're not so heavy. And the spotting, if it's the type that has spots, the spots will vary on every single bloom, so you get a variety. Yeah, different number of spots, different placing, different amounts of tinges. So that's the two Tolumnias that are open at the moment. There are many more to come. As I say, I think I've only got two Tolumnias that aren't in bloom. And he says, looking round, forgetting the other one, which probably is my favourite Tolumnia. This is Tolumnia Peach, and this is a proper registered name. And this is a real colour changer, this one. The base of the bloom on this one opens bright yellow with no peach on it at all, and then within a week it develops that deep rich peach colour where it gets its name from. That really is a spectacular Tolumnia, and starting to branch already. Yeah. This one up here has no branches. This one up here, the main spike died, and it had two branches which have pushed on, one of which is now branching again, which will extend its blooming. So, but the plant for this one, Tolumnia Peach, is doing really well. And the fact that it has it has another 2 or 3 new growths pushing on at the moment, so there's probably going to be more spikes to come on that soon. Once a plant Tolumnia reaches maturity, in theory, every single new growth should bloom. And it pushes out new growths any time, so they can be in bloom any time. Yeah, and the more fans you get growing alongside each other, the more chance you've got of spikes coming out together. One of mine has actually got 3 spikes on the go at the moment, and that'll be a first for me. I've only ever had a maximum of 2, so 3 spikes is progress. Right, nothing else lurking down there. Twinkle Yellow has virtually finished now. And thanks for all you eagle-eyed spotters in yesterday's video that said, what's that discoloured bulb in the centre of the plant? Well, it was an old bulb just turning yellowy brown. And I just basically thought, oh, I'll have to take that off sometime probably. But when I actually felt it yesterday, it was going soft. So it came off immediately. No hesitation whatsoever. And I've sealed the place where it was with cinnamon. So, yeah, I mean, older bulbs do get discoloured on Oncidium types, but they should still stay firm. If they start getting soggy and feel like there may be some liquid inside, get it off. Cut it out immediately. And try, if it is full of liquid, don't get that liquid all over your plant because it's infected. There's something, you know, quite bad going on and you don't want that liquid going all over your plant. If by chance that actually happens, then I would suggest a good flush, you know, try and clean it up as best you can, because obviously it's full of some sort of bacterial infection. So anyway, that one's dealt with. The two Spring Dreamer pollens, one of which is Kiki's growing on, and the other one was a division, which was supposed to be growing on, but decided to bloom instead. They're looking good. I mean, Spring Dreamer pollen is one of the nice noblies. And again, it's the subtle colours sometimes. Not so heavy on the pink tinges. Hang on, there's one around the other side that... there, that's... a little more pink showing around this side of the plant, but a sort of greeny cream centre that is quite green when they open and then fades, a lovely papery white, and these delicate pinky purple tinges on the edges of the petals and sepals. So it's a nice one, that. I like that one a lot. Those blooms will be over soon. You saw the demise of the Zygopetalum Louisendorf, which is now not a Zygopetalum, it's a Zygolum. So I don't know whether somebody's got a Lord of the Rings fetish going on there with the genera, but apparently it's been reclassified, so it's not a Zygopetalum anymore, it's a Zygolum, whatever that is. Never heard of that before. Anyway, so be it. But the other one is going to be in a similar state if I'm not careful, because that one's due a repot, but the older pseudo-bulbs on that one are not shrivelling, so I'm not so desperate with that one. The other one got left too long, you know, I shouldn't do that. I should know better. I'm growing long enough to not do that. But anyway, this one's looking nice. This is just a no ID. It doesn't need an ID in my book. That is a gorgeous bloom. I really like that one a lot. Not a good spike with only 2 blooms, but 2 blooms is better than no blooms. And with a record of killing zygos like they're going out of fashion, even helping them going out of fashion, to get one to grow and bloom is a bonus for me. I don't class myself as a good zygo grower. I was thinking I was getting better, but after the demise of the other one. But that was neglect. That was just my fault. That plant should not have been allowed to go downhill like that. I will try not to do it again. Right, where are we? So I'm virtually standing in the Vander bucket here. So I'm looking at what I'm doing, not where I'm going, if you see what I mean. And this one turned out to be very popular on the Facebook page. The Big Bush, as it's endearingly nicknamed, but its proper name is Dendrobium hancockii. And I got buds coming out everywhere on this plant. I'm really pleased this year. We've only got 2 blooms open at the moment, this one and this one here. But you can see up the top there's another bud that will be open probably in the next day or so. And wherever you look on this plant, there's buds. Yeah, buds. They're coming out all over the place. Buds. You know, that particular cane there has got 3 sets of buds on it, and 2 of them have 2 buds. And that's the first time I've seen that. Mind you, I haven't had this plant a long time, but there's buds coming out. It really is. The more you look, the more you see. Oh, and while we're on that subject, for all those disbelievers, I will film my Dendrobium jenkinsii again, because last time I filmed it showing all the new spikes, most people said, well, I can't see any spikes. Well, they were tiny. So perhaps I'll get the tripod out and do a close-up. But trust me, there are spikes coming out all over the place on that one. But no blooms yet, and this is a blooms video. Right, coming round here, hanging down in the middle of nowhere here, this one. This is Dendrobium conico, and very pleased with the blooms on here and the fact that it's bloomed on some really old canes. But one thing I have noticed is that the blooms on the really old canes are a much paler colour, much paler. Quite honestly, the colour is more representative of the Victoria Regina that's actually in the cross. It's a cross with Goldschmidtianum and Victoria Regina. But the deep purple ones are on a more recent cane, and the paler ones are on the really old canes that I never expected to bloom, quite honestly. So we have what we can get. Oh, there's some more buds down here as well on this cane, pushing out at the end. Oh, and something, I've got a Dendrobium being very, very silly. I know this is a blooms video, but I'm actually quite excited. You know, I'm going to do a little jig. You won't see it, don't ask. But up here, this one here is Dendrobium bullenium. And this was one of the ones that was hand-picked for me by somebody. And according to the pictures, it should bloom similar to this one. So on leafless canes, part way up from the cane, sometimes near the apex of the cane, but that would be what I was expecting from this one. And bearing in mind I haven't got any I've only got one leafless cane on this because you know, this was growing on, which it's been doing for some time. I wasn't expecting anything from it, but if I can find it, oh, there it is. We have buds at the end of the cane. The last place I'd have expected buds to come out, really. But it's going to bloom. And you know the hibiki, this one here, it has clusters of blooms very close to the cane, as does this one here. Well, that one blooms in a similar fashion, or it's supposed to, except for it's a bright fiery orange and yellow. So I am looking forward to that one. Right, slightly sidetracked. I don't normally do that in this video, but I was a bit excited with that. My Dendrobium rhodostictum, again, Latoria type, long-lasting blooms. The first spike that opened is about to lose its last bloom. This was a spike following on behind from an old leafless cane, which, yeah, that's an old cane. So that decided to bloom. So that'll keep it going for a little longer. Out of the Latoria types, this one is, let me get down. Getting down's easy, it's getting up. Several people have actually said that the individual blooms viewed from below look like a bird in flight. And I can see that. I can see that. I didn't see it before until somebody mentioned it. But lovely pure white and lovely veining and patterning on the lip on that one. And that shape. That's what makes that one special for me. It's the shape of the blooms. Oh, not the best of plants, but it is pushing out a new growth down there. So we have got a new cane to come. Right, we've got the orange cattleya here. With the long name, and more buds to come on this one. I'll put a pop up. It's too early in the day to be reading out names that long. But this is a nice cattleya. I'm not too keen on yellow cattleyas with red lips. A red cattleya with a yellow lip would be attractive to me, but there's just something about that. But this one I like because it's just red and orange. So it's got a lovely deep orange colour. A frilly tunnel type lip with a deep red inside. So that colour combination I quite like, and more buds to come on that. And tucked away in the greenery we have, this is Paphiopedilum Magical Venus. Been in bloom a while now, and I don't think that's fading yet. I think that's still okay for a while yet. Lovely, sorry, there's a Cymbidium leaf in my face here, getting on my nerves. Nice large blooms on this one, and attractive. Lots of hairy things and warty things going on. Hang on, if I stick that, you might be able to see the hairy bits along the top of the... It's just a strange, quite a few have that. And the Paphiopedilum mordier also has the hairy thing going on with the warty bits. This one I like just because it's just two colours. Again, this is quite a large bloom. That cymbidium leaf's going to get cut off in a minute. An annoyance. Not a good time of day to annoy young Roger, or old Roger in this case. Right, this is my Dendrobium phalaenopsis type called Thai Angel. I moved this one over here. Not a brilliant spike on this one, but we take what we get. Very attractive blooms on this. I just love the patterning. It's bordering on tessellations like the big bluey Vanda and the big white Vanda that will be an ex-white Vanda soon. That's off to a new home. But yeah, quite attractive. Desperately needs a repot. Not quite as bad as the other two though. And then this little one down here is my Dendrobium Cuthbertsonii. I'll get there in a minute. Single bloom on this. Not growing brilliantly, but growing. There have been several new growths have pushed out. I'm not that happy with the way I planted with this. It was a good idea at the time, but I don't think it's staying moist enough. I mean, that moss is... The trouble is with this moss, this isn't sphagnum moss, is it looks green even when it's dry, so it keeps catching me out. But I think that might do better mounted, actually. But anyway, it needs dealing with. Although it has produced some new growths, it's not a happy plant, and if I leave it too long in that unhappy state, it might not be with us too long. The other one, I did have two, the other one's died. That one didn't make it. It's funny actually, the other one had the better roots when it was planted. It was planted the same as this, but I don't want this one following down the same path, so I'm going to have to deal with the plant. And that needs to come up the front of the list as well. That needs some water now. My no ID cymbidium has had an attack. You can see something has been nibbling all around the edges of the blooms, and I think whatever was nibbling it was a slug, possibly a snail, but more likely to be a slug. And I think I've dealt with it with some slug pellets in the pot, because I don't think it's getting any worse. It's not getting any worse that I can't see any more chewing going on, but the damage that's been done is making the blooms look worse, because obviously there's dieback in the places where the nibbling has taken place. But I don't think there's any more nibbling going on. But this has been in bloom quite a while now, so these blooms aren't long for this world, and the plant won't be in here too much longer. I mean, as soon as the threat of frosts and that are gone from the night, it'll be off out into the garden again. So it's not going to stay in here too much longer. It only has one new growth at the moment, but it is pushing on. And then this one, my Dendrobium prima donna, which is a nobile type. Plant was split. The biggest part went off to somebody else a while ago. The idea being that it had started to get too big for its boots and was starting to look tired. The number of old canes and things like that, it was spectacular this time last year. I mean, that actually got Best Hybrid in Show at the Wessex show, which is like tomorrow, so a year ago. But since then it got repotted after it finished blooming, and that set it back a bit because it was not really the right time of year to repot it. So the new growth last year didn't grow to full size. Yeah, so it had a little bit of stalling going on, and I wasn't expecting many blooms at all this year, but it still didn't do bad. Excuse me. But this year this needs growing hard. It needs to get some good full-sized new canes on it, S on the end there, canes, not one, and get it back to some sort of normality. Now, most of the blooming on this one are filling in gaps. You can see these are older canes, and you can see the stubby bits where it has bloomed before. So that cane had already bloomed, but it missed out those two nodes at the top. Yeah? So it's filling in the gaps this year, and most of these blooms are of that description. They're on the oldest canes, all gathered together in the centre there to keep it tidy, and they've pushed out blooms in the bits that they missed out this time last year. So that's why we've got the blooms where they are, all squashed up together in the middle. It's not exactly a good display, is it? But yeah, we'll sort that one out. Most of those old canes will come off when the new growths get going. I do take older canes off of nobly types, but only when the plant is in a suitable position to do so. They may be old canes, and they may be a bit desiccated looking, but they are still storage organs. But there comes a time when you've got more old ones than new ones, and the plant is still desperately trying to put some energy into those old canes, to store as a backup. Yeah? Well, that energy should be going into the new growths. So, when you've got more new growths than older canes and it's in active growth, the older canes are not needed so much. So you can have a tidy up. But, if you've got 3 old canes and 1 new growth, that's not a good idea to take those old canes off. They are backup for that new growth. They're important. But if you've got 5 or 6 new growths pushing on hard and 3 older canes that have totally finished blooming, you can tidy the plant up if you want. The energy will then go into the new part of the plant. So that's quite good. And just having a quick scan round before I say it. Yep. Last but not least is the little Orangus fastuosa. And those other 2 blooms, have they actually opened? They're opening, aren't they? I might take that to the show tomorrow. Simply because not many people grow them. So it's sometimes I take things to show not to win a prize, just so that people might get ideas of something they can grow, if you see what I mean. I've always said that the way to learn about orchids is to see them. Have a look and see what's going on, see what other people grow, especially at a society, because the person who grows it is there. You can ask them questions. How do they look after it? Any special needs or anything like that? So as far as special needs with this, there aren't any. The only special need this one's got is it could do with a bigger mount now. A lot of its new roots this time have pushed on beyond the mount. So they're not getting as hydrated as I would like them to be. Now what I could do with that little mount is just tie it to a bigger mount. Yeah? But I'll think about it. To take it off of its mount, I'm going to strip those roots off and lose an awful lot of them, and I'd be reluctant to do that. It took a while to get that plant to grow on to blooming size. It was a little seedling. There's a guy at the Bournemouth Orchid Society, he's got his own lab, and he does actually, grow plants from seed in the flasks and everything with the special lights and stuff like that, and grows them on and then sells them on. It sort of helps some income come in. I suspect the cost of producing them outweighs the cost he gets for them. Anyway, it's an interesting thing to do if you have the facilities. But anyway, that was one of his seedlings from a while ago. So that's that, and that is it. There are other things in bloom in here that are not orchids, like this one. Now I was going to take this to the show, but it's starting to go. So I probably won't, because it would be a faff taking that to the show. It's just literally such a large plant, it would be a nuisance. But and the other thing that people ask about now and again is the little pinguiculars. Now they just keep blooming on and off, and they're attractive little blooms, not orchids obviously, but in this environment they grow quite well. The ones that I've got are all Mexican pinguiculars, which is like a loose term, because they don't all directly come from Mexico, but they have a care and a culture that's common to all of them, so they're given like that group name. And basically, if these get too cold, they will shut down, and they start growing different types of leaves or stop growing. Well, obviously, this place out here is just about warm enough to keep them going, because they stay green and they keep their look about them throughout the winter. and you know, these will push on now. I mean, that one there has got an awful lot of rosettes on it now. That could do with dividing, really. I've never repotted one of these. All I know is that they have the shallowest root system. I mean, the chances are if I pick that plant up, it would just lift off the pot. They don't really get right down in the media, they just sort of sit on it and the roots are just touching or just down in the top of the media. But you know, they keep blooming and they're attractive and they have a function. They catch and dissolve the little fungus gnats. These leaves are covered in sticky, yeah, which I've now got on my finger, but I just thought I presume the camera can see that. So any of those little fungus gnats, or anything else for that matter, that gets on there can't get away, yeah? And then the enzymes in the leaves dissolve it and turn it into food. So unfortunately, these have done their job so well, they're going to go hungry for a bit now, because I haven't seen a fungus gnat in here for so long. So they've done their job, and they did it well, because those are annoying little tykes. Right, so there we go. That's my everything in bloom for the 8th. And as I said, a few repeats there, because we did look at some of these yesterday. But that gathers them all together. That's what's in bloom at the moment on this day. And yeah, it's going to be dendrobium time soon. My resting dendrobiums have got buds coming out all over the place. So in theory, providing they don't open and finish before then, the next one in April, we should have quite a few of those in bloom next time round, so that'll be nice. So until then, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.